Good evening, everyone. So, we are done discussing the 12 psychological principles, content, instruction, and assessment. And now we are going to proceed to another psychological principles that would definitely help students learn more effectively inside the classroom. So, we're under still in our acquire menu. So we'll start with cognition and learning. So when we say cognition, it's how do students think and learn. So first we have growth mindset. Students' beliefs or perceptions about intelligence and ability affect their cognitive functioning and learning. So research shows that learners who hold the growth mindset that intelligence is malleable and its success is related to effort level are more likely to remain focused on goals and persist despite setbacks. So basically, if you have that mindset that even though you have difficult subjects or difficulty in learning, but if you have that mindset that you can do it, then definitely you can. Second, we'll have prior knowledge. Prior knowledge, this is on what students already know affects their learning. So, research shows that prior knowledge influences both conceptual growth and conceptual change in students. So, with conceptual growth, students add to their existing knowledge, and with conceptual change, students correct misconception or errors in existing knowledge. Prior knowledge can be used also to help students incorporate background knowledge and draw connections between units during the course. So, for example, whatever they learn at home, they can definitely correct that if they learn at school, or they can incorporate what they have learned at home going to school. Next is limits of stage theories. So, with this, students' cognitive development and learning are not limited by general stages of development. So, research indicates that cognitive development and learning are not limited by the general stages of development. So, basically, learning doesn't have limits. Okay, we don't base it merely that you are going to learn like at this part, or for example you have learned something about universe, so the learning doesn't only stop there. Next is facilitating context. Learning is based on context. Generalizing learning to new context is not spontaneous, but rather needs to be facilitated. So basically, if we are going to learn something or learning new context, it doesn't mean that it's spontaneous. It needs to be facilitated. That's why we teachers are there. We are the facilitators of the learning. So next is practice. Acquiring long-term knowledge and skills largely dependent on practice. So basically, it's really wrong to say that practice makes perfect because no one is perfect or nobody's perfect. So we can say practice makes better. So if you're not familiar, or for example, if you have difficulty in math, maybe you can practice more and more. Like you need to face numbers with confidence so that you can learn math. Practice. Next, feedback. Clear, explanatory, and timely feedback to students is important for learning. So it's like the same when you are a speaker. Like for example, you have this, or you're gonna be a resource speaker. It's really not good if you don't have feedbacks from the audience. It means, or it meaning to say, they are not with you. They're actually not listening with you. So in learning, feedback should also be incorporated so that students would learn something from it. Okay. Next is self-regulation. Students' self-regulation assists in learning, and self-regulatory skills can be taught. So, self regulation skills, including attention, organization, self control, planning, and memory stage strategies, improve learning and engagement and can be taught through direct instruction. You can also do modeling and classroom organizations. Next, last under the cognition and learning is creativity. Of course, experts believe that students' creativity can be fostered. So, This principle describes specific methods of structuring assignments to increase creativity and ideas for how to model creative problem solving. So, mean to say, students' creativity can be fostered by providing opportunities for student designed research projects, video projects, demonstrations, and model building. So, that's it for recognition and learning. We also have under motivation. So the question that goes around the word motivation is what motivates students. So if it's Nescafe, saan ka kanino ka bumabangon? So basically that's the motivation part. So we'll have first the intrinsic motivation. When we say intrinsic, that's within, right? So students tend to enjoy learning and to do better when they are more intrinsically rather than extrinsically motivated to achieve. Of course, it's okay also to be extrinsically motivated, but it's really good if you are intrinsically motivated because it's within. Like, you can tell yourself that you need to be motivated because you want to do something, you want to reach something for your family or for yourself. Next is mastery goals. Students persist in the face of challenging tasks and process information more deeply when they adopt mastery goals rather than performance goals. So, when we talk about mastery goals, students who form mastery goals are focused on attaining new skills or increasing existing ability. But students who develop performance goals typically are focused simply on showing adequate ability. So if you are a mastery or if you have mastery goals, mean to say you have already this goal, you just need to like make it bloom like a flower. You can attain or you can focus on attaining new skills, and of course, using your existing ability. Next, teacher expectations. Teacher expectations about their students affect students' opportunities to learn, their motivation, their learning outcomes. Psychological research has uncovered ways for teachers to communicate high expectation for all students and avoid creating negative self-fulfilling prophecies. So basically, we teachers, our main goal is of course to motivate our students to do good, not only for his or her family, but also for his or herself. Because if you feel motivated, basically you're gonna be satisfied. Okay. Next is goal setting. I'm gonna say goal setting under the motivation still. Goal setting or setting goals that are short term for proximal, specific, and moderately challenging enhances motivation more than establishing goals that are long term, general, and overly challenging. So, of course, these principles under the goal setting explains how students can use short term, specific, and moderately challenging goals to increase self efficacy and build toward larger goals. Like, for example, on my part, when I um, uh, entered the gate of BPOs or call center companies, I am just, telling myself that it's going to be for a short term goal. But that short term goals that short term goal actually makes me realize that I can do better with the long term goals. I actually considered it as my training ground to becoming a teacher or to becoming a part of Department of Education. That's my long term goal. Okay, so we're actually done with the motivation. So we're done with recognition and learning motivation, and now we will go to social and emotional dimensions. So the question in this social and emotional dimensions are like, why are social context, interpersonal relationships, and emotional well-being important to student learning? So that would enter the opportunities to learn from others. Okay, so under the social context, or I mean social and emotional dimension, first is social context. Social context learning situation is situated within multiple social contexts. So for example, this principle emphasizes how the various community students belong to, such as but not limited to families, peer groups, schools, neighborhood, and their culture. Example, shared language, beliefs, values, behavioral norms influence learning. Like, for example, in your first day at class, if you're a student, you would Of course, you would make a good conversation. You would make a sociable learning with your classmates. So mean to say, you're doing that not knowing if that classmate or if your classmate has the same beliefs as you have. Okay, so what you need to do is, of course, you listen to your classmates and share with them also your beliefs. Okay, next is interpersonal relationships. So interpersonal relationships and communication are critical to both the teaching learning process and the social development for students. So, of course, this principle provides detailed and specific guidelines for improving both teacher student and student peer relationship in the classroom. Of course, sharing is knowledge. You cannot just own your knowledge without sharing it or imparting it to your classmate or to your teachers so that you would have a better interpersonal relationship. That's also one of the factors that would affect your learning inside the classroom. Next is well being. Well being, emotional well being, influences educational performance, learning, and development. So, various components of emotional well being can be included across courses such as self concept, self esteem, that's under social psychology, self efficacy, and locus of control, motivation, personality, and happiness and coping skills, that's under emotion and stress. So if you have good well-being while learning inside the classroom, then definitely learning would be fun and exciting for you. So we're also done with the social and emotional dimension. Again, we're done with the cognition learning, motivation, and social and emotional dimension. So we're going to talk about the last part. That's second to the last, that's context and learning. The question is, how can the classroom best be managed? So we teachers, we want to have conducive place for learning for our students. So these principles related to classroom management emphasize how to develop a classroom climate that enhances learning. So first we have classroom conduct. Expectations for classroom conduct and social interaction are learned and can be taught using proven principles of behavior and effective classroom instruction. So it really depends on the teachers on how he or she would make this classroom conduct effective for her or for him and for the students. Expectations and support. Effective classroom management is based on first, that's setting and communicating high expectations. And second, consistently nurturing positive relationships. And third, providing a high level of student support. So it's based on three principles. Like inside the classroom, there's always going to be an expectation. And of course, support will actually be needed, not only for students' development, but also for the well-being of students, because it's really different if students would know that there are someone there is someone who is supporting him or her. Okay, and the last, this is the final, that's the assessment. So we are actually done with the cognition learning, motivation, social and emotional dimensions, and context and learning. So we're down to the last, that's the assessment. So when we say assessment, of course, it would ask a question: how is student progress assessed? So how would you know if the students really learn from you? So there are three principles devoted to the process of student evaluation. Discuss methods for creating and implementing valid and fair assessments that contribute to student learning. First, formative and summative assessment. So formative assessments are typically used as part of everyday practice and are given either prior to or during instruction. So basically, in short, when we say formative assessments, that's the daily quiz that we have. Um, uh, it's also like the chapter exam or the chapter test. That's formative assessment. On the other hand, when we say summative assessments, it's a result in an overall evaluation of student learning or program effectiveness are typically utilized at the end of the unit or course, thus having more limited impact on current instruction. So, summative assessments, these are like unit tests. For example, you're done with the unit 1. So, there's a lot of chapters. So, you're actually done with the formative assessment like daily quiz, chapter test. We also have, or the summative test, that's the unit test, or in senior high school, that's midterm exam and finals. That's under summative test. Next is assessment development. Students' skill, knowledge, and ability are best measured with assessment process grounded in psychological science with well-defined standards or quality and fairness. So formative and summative assessments need to be evaluated for both reliability and validity. So basically, you're not just giving tests to see the progress of your students, because the test itself should be evaluated for both reliability and validity. Of course, you're not. That's why we have this. What do you call that? TOS, table of specification. Yeah, that's to make the test like more valid and reliable as well. And of course, as teacher, or in depth ed, we are practicing departmentalized tests. I mean to say, if I'm teaching oral communication and the other two teachers are also teaching oral communication, we are going to share our tests and check if we have some errors or mistakes so that the test can be valid and reliable. Last is assessment evaluation. Making sense of assessment data depends on clear, appropriate, and fair interpretation. Effective teaching requires the teachers be able to accurately interpret test results and clearly communicate the results to students and parents. So basically, when we say assessment evaluation, um, uh, we teachers would definitely interpret the test results, and we are going to communicate with the parents if how is their child or their children. Okay, so that's it for the last part of my topic that was introduced last week. So now I'll be posing you some questions. I want you to think about it. We are now under the apply. So the third A. So the question is, which shall be given more emphasis in flexible learning among the 12 psychological principles content, instruction, and assessment during this pandemic, and why? So we are going to base our answer in our last week's discussion about the 12 psychological principles, content, instruction, and assessment. And another question is, if you are asked for the application of the psychological principles to flexible teaching and learning, what should it be and why? So you're going to choose one application of the psychological principle to flexible teaching and learning. And what would it be and why? And last, for the assess, last the last A in the force. As future administrators, what are the challenges that you perceive in the lesson? Kindly write your answer on the space provided. That's on the module. So for this, I think I would just need you to think about it, and maybe you can share your answer. You can share your answers during our synchronous meeting tomorrow. And and last, on this page, or that's the last, post a research abstract related to classroom teaching and learning and make discussions or comments. So that's also for you guys to think about it, and maybe you can actually share that tomorrow during our synchronous meeting with Dr. Siriaka. Okay, so that's it. Thank you, classmates, for listening. I hope you have actually learned something. Um, uh, God bless us all, and I hope you have a great time ahead of you. Goodbye.